Hey guys, it's Nick and Logan from Beer and Bat Reps, and for today's vlog, we're going to sit and brainstorm some Necron lists for a battle report we're going to film later while I go over the Sons of Behemat destruction book. I just got it, I'm excited. I know there's a lot of reviews on the internet, but none from us. None from the chill guys at Beer and Bat Reps, so sit back, relax, and I'm going to go through this hilarious Battletome. The artwork is amazing. It's cracking me up. And the fluff and storylines are hilarious. So you got your normal table of contents, you got your awesome, ridiculous battle scenes, because like, if you start counting these at 500 points each, or a little under 500, you're like, this is a 4,000 point battle happening. But they only show like 500 points of the army they're fighting, so who knows. I'd love to be a photographer for GW. Just like set up models and put some like fake like smoke on the table with some cool red lighting and call it a day. Look at your work you did today. Just get pictures of toys. But yeah, the fluff is awesome. They have all these hilarious little pictures like this knight riding next to a huge footprint in the ground, Jurassic Park style. It says to fight the Sons of Behemat is to fight the Titans of legend. The Gargant race sees its enemies as vermin who exist only to be crushed, hurled, and eaten. The killing blade causes them but a scratch. The well-aimed arrow is no more than a pinprick. The blazing spell scorches but does not slow. Only the most valiant or cunning stand a chance. And in the pictures, they're just literally like throwing Stormcast through the air, destroying this whole town. So fun. This is the picture I've been cracking up and showing everybody. This Gargant's just plugging up a volcano with a huge boulder. And this one's like angry at meteorites that are hitting him. It's awesome. So fun. They have this classic picture of Sigmar slaying the World Titan. So they used to be gigantic, like taller than the clouds. It'd be like putting a toddler on the battlefield, letting it kick the models over. But now they're little. Well, not little, they're pretty huge, but I don't know, what do you think, Noah, or Logan, you think it's going to play a little bit more like Night Titans from 40k?
I think they will. I think they're...
It seems very...
They got 35 wounds, and yeah, that's a lot of wounds for AOS.
Probably going to play more like how Knights should be.
Mm-hmm.
And like we've seen in the past several times, they seem to test things out in AOS before they port it over to 40k to make sure it works. Like Catacross becoming the Silent King. Like the whole like display
well,
base.
the orcs got a 1,200 point model, the Gargant, whatever it is, Stompa
in 40k.
Yeah,
it's like 800 points with 40 wounds.
Yeah,
and he's at 65 wounds. Like it dies so easily for 800 points. So there's tons of fluff that are all hilarious. They really just had fun with this one, guys. It's just like stories you grew up with, you know, fee fi fo fum, beanstalk, all that stuff. It's so fun. And then they kind of tell you how they form together. They're called a stomp. That's the name of the armies, or their chapters or houses. They're called stomps. And you have the big heel, which is the general. He's the biggest and strongest. And then you have under the heel, which are the other mega Gargants that are going to eventually take over if they find a weakness with the big heel. They're ready to take over. And then you've got the foot Slagas, which are all the basic man crusher Gargants, the much smaller ones. And there's some fun, like, politics, if you read into it, between the giants. They can be mercenaries, and we'll get into that a little bit later. They kind of led us to believe that they could be used in any army, but actually when they're mercenaries, it's a little more strict than that. And we'll get into each one and why it's okay that they split them up, in my opinion. They have some named ones. They don't actually have special rules, just special background. It would have been cool if they had some named special character one. Big Drog Fort Kicker. Because he kicks forts.
Kicked a fort.
I mean, they had this guy a while back, King Broad, in a White Dwarf, this little blurb, and people thought, oh, there's going to be some named character one, and then it never happened. Maybe he's still coming.
And kind of like the king of the giants.
Yeah, and he'll be $295 instead of $195. I hope not. I'm crying and laughing. It's an awesome fight between the Idnath Deepkin and some Gargants coming out of their seaside lair. I really think this guy is going to be great allied with Deepkin, the Kraken Eater, because he just fits with their fluff and theme perfectly. It's like, hey, stop killing our Krakens and sea monsters and we'll pay you to just fight with us instead of killing us. So they got a really nice paint section, kind of showing you each of the different ones. The War Stomper is my favorite. I know he's more of the generic looking one, but he's just a bigger, better version of...
I like that he jammed the rock in the end of his club.
Yeah, the one I've had since I was a kid, the Ale Guzzler. He's basically that, just on steroids. Yeah, and it's actually called like a...
Stone Club?
Massive boulder club or something. And it's mean. I mean, we'll get into how strong it is. This guy, the Gatebreaker, I'm pretty sure this is like 10 attacks at flat 3 damage. So they're super strong when they get to combat. And I love that in the fluff they're like, he's even fighting Khorne Demon strongholds. They don't care. But he likes smashing through any gates he can find. It says the Gatebreaker's contempt for so-called strongholds is not limited to Sigmar's precious civilizations. Even dreadholds swarming with demons are smashed to rubble purely to prove the Mega Gargant mightiest of all living things. I can't wait till see someone paint one as like demonic because it's joined with their demon army, or paint one that's like ethereal with their Night Hound. I think it'd just be really cool. I kind of want to do one with my orc paint scheme. Have a big green one. Maybe one of the man crushers can be green. Big ugly orc. But I mean, this shows you they're big.
Yeah, they're big.
He's like
a big dragon
towering over the biggest dragon, so pretty excited. And they're fighting the Bone Reapers. So cool. And I mean, rule of cool is just through the roof with these guys. I mean, I'll get into the negative. For me, is the price point. These guys are $195. Unfortunately, if you're from like Australia, they're like $330. So yes, they are very, very pricey. I'll eventually get one, but that's probably it. I'd like to have one of each, but man, they're too much. They're too expensive. So they got nice little color by numbers, paint by numbers. Show you how ways you can convert them, or these may even, I think these might come with the models, but I mean, that is awesome. He's got the skin of a Seraphon on his arm. Like snake skin. And then he's got the Leviathan shell, turtle shell, from the Idnath Deepkin. It's pretty awesome. I like this.
That's on the actual model? Or
yeah, those bits come with the kit. And the club from the Kraken Eater is literally just a bunch of cannons tied together. That would hurt. And to show you how to make your, 20-year-old Ale Guzzler Gargant models a little more unique, since they did not redo that kit. It's the exact same kit. Alright, let's get into this. So Legion's abilities. Mightier makes rightier. When determining control and objective, each friendly Man Crusher Gargant model counts as 10 models instead of 1, and each friendly Mega Gargant counts as 20 instead of 1. Imperial Knights from 40k are crying because of this rule. They need this exact rule.
What was it? I'm sorry.
So the little ones count as 10 models for objectives, and the big ones count as 20.
Yeah, I heard.
It'd be perfect, like for Imperial Knights. I think another idea I heard online from someone was that let Imperial Knights count as the same amount of models as wounds they have remaining. So at the beginning they count as 24 models. If they're down to 5 wounds, they count as 5 models. Yeah. So it gives you a reason to wound them and not necessarily kill them. Everyone just focuses down the big models, as you should, but let's keep going. If you hear scratching at my door, it is Miles the Malefic. He's always trying to break in and ruin everything because he's a cat and that's what cats do. Alright, so next we have Chuck Rocks. In your shooting phase, you can pick one friendly Man Crusher Gargant unit wholly within 18 inches of your general. Each model in that unit can make a shooting attack with a Chuck Rocks missile weapon below. 18-inch range, D3 shots, 4s to hit, 3s to wound, -1 rend, D3 damage. Now that's not a That doesn't take a CP. They just have that rule. You just pick a unit of man crushers and they get to throw rocks. So it gives you a reason to keep them in units of 3 instead of 3 individual giants.
Okay, so you can only do it if they're...
But you can do it anytime, but it says a unit.
Okay, so it's just a single unit. You just can't have like a whole army of them throwing rocks at people.
Well, you'll see later, if you make your general the War Stomper, his hits all on the board. His like selects all of them to throw their rocks, which is pretty cool. But it takes a CP to do that. It's like his battle ability or whatever.
Yeah.
But what's cool is that if you take 3 of the Man Crusher Gargants in one unit, it counts as all 3 of your battle line, even though it's 1 unit. So that's all you need is 1 unit of 3, which is kind of cool. Alright, so then you have Lord and Master. The general of the Sons of Behemat army must be one of the following types of Mega Gargant: Kraken Eater, War Stomper, Gatebreaker. And that becomes a different type of tribe. So if your leader's a Kraken Eater, it becomes a Taker tribe because he's obsessed with treasure and taking things. If your leader's a War Stomper, it becomes a Stomper tribe. And if your leader's a Gatebreaker, it becomes a Breaker tribe. And we'll get into all that coming up. So Taker tribe battle traits. You can pick between these 2. Or no, they just get them. So get rid of them. This is if your leader is a Kraken Eater. When using the Mightier Makes Rightier rule for determining control of an objective, each friendly Man Crusher Gargant model counts as 15 models instead of 10. And each friendly Mega Gargant counts as 30 models instead of 20. 30 models. One guy counts as. So you can really hold objectives.
So you ain't never taken that.
Yeah, just...
Because they got big enough bases that they can just stop a group of 30 people from getting around you.
They also get more stuff for me collection. More stuff for me collection because he's a pirate. Each time an enemy model with an artifact of power is slain, you can roll for a triumph on the triumph table. You can use that triumph during the current battle even if you've already used it. If you do not use it during the current battle, it is lost. So if you know what triumphs are, they're just little bonuses. It's usually reroll all misses, reroll all failed wounds, or reroll saves. So if you kill someone with an artifact, you just get one of those bonuses, but you have to use it that turn, which is a little tricky. Their command traits, you can pick one of these. Monstrously Tough. The general has 40 wounds instead of 35. That's probably one I'll be doing most of the time. You can do Old and Gnarly. You can reroll save rolls of 1 that target the general. Now they have 4-up saves, so 4-up rerolling 1s is pretty nice, but you have ways of getting that anyway with a command point or with a spell. And you can actually make one of these a wizard, which we'll read in a second, which is hilarious. Add one of the attacks characteristic with the Shipwreck of War Club. That's alright. I mean, more attacks is always good, but I'm pretty sure an extra 5 wounds is better. I'd want my general to have 40 wounds, which is amazing. Strong Right Foot. When you use this general's Good Off Me Land ability to kick an objective marker away, you can roll 3d6 instead of 2d6 to determine how far it's kicked. That's insane. So he can kick objectives 3d6 inches. So you run him to the middle, and then you kick it back to the rest of your army, which is just crazy. That's just gonna change the entire game. Like that actually might be like in tournaments. Like that might be an actual like thinking man's
And
thing.
can you do that if you like bring them with any army, or if you ally them in?
So no, this is if you only get these if you're running it as a Sons of Behemat army.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could just take one of these in like a, Archaon's army and just run up and kick it all them back. Yeah. Or I guess these guys are only for order. So yeah, can you imagine like a Stormcast army that's like, hey, go get that objective and kick it back to all of our liberators back here. It's very good. I mean, even in this army, I can still see it being really good. Like you could run up and kick it sideways to a group of 2 more giant Mega Gargants so they can hold it better. Because that's a way to get objectives close to each other. It doesn't have the not within 12 of each other caveat. So you could kick this right next to another one and just have 2 objectives right there and just pile the giants on it. Wow, that is amazing. Can't wait to try that one. Then you have Very Acquisitive. You can take 1 extra trophies taken by Force artifact. In addition, this general can have up to 2 artifacts instead of 1. So that's amazing. You can have 2 artifacts. Pretty cool. And then you have Extremely Intimidating. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for enemy models that are within 3 inches of this general. Wow. So he can become -1 to hit, and not just for him. It's any that are within 3. So you put your other giants right next to them so that everyone's just -1 to hit. That's pretty terrifying as well. So there's some ways you can make the Kraken Eater really strong. -1 to hit might be better than an extra 5 wounds. -1 to hit on a 35 wound Gargant.
And you gotta take one or the other?
Yeah, these are the command traits.
Oh, okay.
So,
sorry,
no, you're fine. Distracted. So you got -1 to hit is really good. You got +5 wounds is really good, and then you have the one that kicks it farther, 3d6 inches, kicks the objective.
I don't know.
The objective's cool.
The objective's cool. It's cool, and I think it's the best.
Well, there's one that lets it so you can hold 2 artifacts, which is pretty cool. And his artifacts, some of them are really strong, and we're gonna go over those right now. So, first artifact is the Jaws of the Megalodon. Once per phase, you can reroll a hit, wound, or save roll. So that's not bad. So just once per phase, you can reroll a dice, hit, wound, or save per phase. So that could add up when you have a 4-up save. Really handy. The Walloping Tentacle. The start of the combat phase, you pick one enemy hero within 3 inches and roll a dice. On a 4+, the hero suffers 1 mortal wound. And you can reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks that target that hero. That's alright. Nothing to write home about. You have Jar of Burning Brog. Once per battle, you can pick one enemy unit within 3 inches and roll a dice. On a 2-up, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. And until the end of that phase, you can reroll wound rolls for attacks made by friendly Gargants that target that unit. But on a 1, the bearer suffers D3 mortal wounds. I mean, it's cool, but I'm not sure you really need to just be adding little bits of extra mortal wounds here and there. These guys hit so hard, you're not going to need the extra little mortal wounds. You'd rather have defensive stuff. But that's me personally. I think defensive and movement-based things are always better than combat-based artifacts, but that's just me. Net of the Beast Reaver. At the start of the combat phase, you can pick one enemy monster within 3 inches and roll a dice. On a 4+ until the end of that phase, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by that monster and add 1 to hit rolls that target that monster. Dude, so you have a giant net and you just like throw it on a Stonehorn, and that Stonehorn gets tangled in the net. It becomes -1 to hit, and you get +1 to hit when you're hitting it. That's pretty gross. You just like...
And that's one of the artifacts?
Yeah.
So you can take it with the -1 to hit Warlord trait?
Yep.
And then...
So you can be -2 because it doesn't stop at -1 like 40k does. You can be -2. Glowy Lantern. The bearer can attempt to cast 1 spell in your hero phase and unbind 1 spell in the enemy hero phase in the same manner as a wizard. They know Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield. You just turn them into a wizard.
Yeah, cool.
It's pretty cool. I mean, it's what people wanted to do with Night Titans. And then the Kraken Skin Sandals. The bearer's Almighty Stomp attacks. Almighty Stomp has an attack characteristic of 3 instead of 2, a rend of -3 instead of -2, and a damage of 3 instead of D3. Wow, okay. That's really good. So that's probably, oh, I said I wouldn't take one that's better on offense. Wow. I guess it depends on your meta. If you fight lots of monsters, you're going to want the net just for netting monsters and making them awful. You know, in our meta, we play against Noah's Stonehorns a lot. So that's probably the best one. Mm-hmm. Just throwing a net on a Stonehorn and watching it really struggle. So then we go to Stomper Tribes, which is the one I'm going to be using for the most part. His battle traits are called Bellowing Lunks. So getting stuck in. Add 1 to the damage inflicted by each successful attack made by a friendly Man-Crusher Gargant unit that targets units of 10 or more models. Add 2 instead of 1 to the damage inflicted by each Man-Crusher Gargant if the unit has 20 or more models. So he makes your guys deal more damage to the bigger hordes they're fighting. I don't know how everyone's metas are where you're watching, but we don't face a lot of hordes here. It's not really a horde strong thing. Even back when we were having tournaments before the pandemic, I mean, like maybe one dude showed up with a dispossessed dwarf horde, and that was it. I mean, it was pretty much. Yeah. I guess skeleton hordes. You saw that.
I mean,
but that's pretty much it.
I think I got the closest thing to a horde right here, which is just the 40 of the fire glade guys.
Yep.
So
the forged ones.
Yeah.
So then you got Big Shouts. If your army is a Stomper tribe, your general must use the following Big Shout command abilities. They cannot use any other command abilities. So get a move on, you slackers. Use this command ability to start your movement phase. If you do so, until the end of that phase, you can make a run roll for a friendly Gargant within 18 inches. The roll is instead treated as a 6. I mean, it's alright. grab those rocks and chuck them at something. You can use this command ability at the start of your shooting phase. If you do so, when you use your Chuck Rocks battle trait, you can pick all friendly Man Crusher Gargants within 18 inches of your general to throw rocks instead of one. So that's the one I was talking about. You can select all giants within 18 to throw the rocks. So that's kind of fun. Just suddenly you have a strong shooting phase. I don't know, quote unquote strong. They're D3 shots that are D3 damage. So it's like
they hit on 4s and wound on 3s.
With a rend. I mean, it's good in mass. So you need.
I mean, it's good if you have like 9 of them that throw, so it's 93.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you kind of, it makes you want to go heavy on Man Crushers, and seeing that they're a lot cheaper.
And that's like the old, that's the little guys, the little guys Man Crushers.
So Ale Guzzlers are still a thing in other armies. These are called Man Crushers because they lose all their randomness. So instead of brackets, they just have 8 movement instead of starting at 12 and getting slower. And then a lot of their types of attacks are more solid numbers instead of random. So they got better, basically. They got better.
Yeah.
They don't fall over when they charge like the drunk ones do. Then you got, you charge. In this command ability, at the start of your charge phase, until the end of that phase, you can reroll charge rolls for friendly Man Crusher Gargants that are within 18. So you're starting to see a pattern. All of his abilities make Man Crusher Gargants better. So reroll charge, throw extra rocks, do extra damage against hordes, advanced flat 6. He gives all of those to Man Crushers. So he makes the Man Crushers like super good. Stop my combat and hit him. To the end of that phase, reroll hit rolls of 1 for friendly Man Crusher Gargants within 18 inches. So you start, if you build an army around Man Crushers, this is by far the way to do. He may not be as fun as the big giant Mega Gargants, but giving buffs to all these guys are really good. You can reroll save rolls of 1 for all of them within 18 inches. You can ignore battle shock. So he's basically the general type 1 that makes Man Crushers amazing. So you get that. Command traits, one-sided battle is what it's called. General has 40 instead of 35. Reroll 1, so it's the exact same ones as the other guy. +1 attack with his Titanic Boulder Club to a maximum of 10. And then we start seeing some different ones. You have Inescapable Grip. When you use this general's hurled body ability, you can reroll the dice that determines if the model is slain and thrown. Yeah, I didn't tell you about that. The War Stomper one that I want to get. He's got that classic giant rule where if you roll equal to or above a model's wounds, you just get to auto kill it.
Yeah.
But he throws the body then, and it does the amount of mortal wounds equal to how many wounds that model had that you're throwing. So if you kill like a 5 wound model, you roll a 5 up, he kills it, and then he throws it and does 5 mortal wounds to the unit he threw that. Just so awesome. So then you have Very Shouty. If he's on the battlefield at the start of the first battle round, you receive D3 extra command points. Not bad. AOS, everything only costs 1 command point, but they're all pretty strong, so D3 extra is pretty good. And then Eager for the Fight, you can attempt to charge with this general if it is within 18 of the enemy instead of 12, and roll 3d6 when making your charge roll. That's really good. 3d6 inch charge that you can do from outside of 12. That's really good. I'm a little boring. I'm probably still just gonna give him 40 wounds. I like the idea that he's just +5 wounds, 40 wounds, make it so he never dies. So then you have the Artifacts of Power. You have the Iron Will of Cestus, which is reroll save rolls. In addition, if the rerolled save roll is an unmodified 6, you do a mortal wound back at him. So he could be 40 wounds with a rerollable 4-up save.
Yeah,
that's gross.
That's good. I like that.
Mantle of the Destroyer. Friendly Gargants have a bravery characteristic of 10 in addition, or within 12 inches. In addition, you can reroll charge rolls for friendly Gargants within 12. So that's another force multiplier. It just makes it so your whole army is basically rerolling charges. That's not bad. And then the artifact that everyone's talking about online, the Club of the First Oak. I definitely want to hear your thoughts on this one. In your hero phase, you heal 1 wound. In addition, when the bearer is slain, roll a dice before the bearer's model is removed from play. On a 4-up, the wound or mortal wound is negated and the bearer is not slain. Any wounds that remain to be allocated are negated. So you're down to 1 wound, someone does 6 wounds to you, you roll a 4-up, you're back alive, and you still have 1 wound. You ignore the rest of the wounds. And it doesn't say once per game. So every time he dies on a 4-up, he doesn't die. Every single time. It's so broken. Everyone thinks that they forgot to put like once per game. Because or the first time he dies. So it's literally Gulliman, but every time he dies, he comes back.
Yeah. But he just comes back with 1 wound, right?
No, it's when he dies, you roll a 4 up, and then you ignore the rest when he comes back to life. He comes back with the same wounds he had when he died. So,
well, yeah. So
if he's got 9 wounds left and someone does a 10 damage hit,
yeah,
and you roll a 4 up, you're back with 9 wounds because you ignore the rest. I mean, it's rare.
But if it was like 2d6 damage,
you ignore the rest, is what it says.
You ignore the rest, but like I mean like 2 separate attacks because you're supposed to roll the attacks one at a time.
Yeah, it says not slain. That's all it says.
Yeah.
And any wounds that remain to be allocated to the bearer are negated.
I think the rerollable save is a lot better because
this also heals one. It's heal 1 wounded turn and come back to life.
Yeah, but I mean, how many more wounds are you gonna save from re-rolling your 4-up save?
I mean, that's true.
Instead of only getting 5 wounds back.
Yeah, I guess, guys, it depends on if you face a lot of high Rend armies, because then this won't be as good. The rerollable save. If you face Rend 2 a lot, then rerollable save isn't as good. You'd rather just heal wounds and come back to life. But if you face like hordes with no AP or no Rend, rerollable save is incredible, because then you're just shrugging off everything. So honestly, I think they're both good. I'll probably do the reroll save more with the 40 wounds just to make it so that he just doesn't die. I mean, you can say that about the other one too, but all right. Then battle traits. You have the hate-fueled wreckers. So now we're to the breaker tribes. So these are the guys with the executioner mask that can join death and break down basically any terrain. They can break it, which is hilarious.
Break down the gates.
Yep. So add 1 damage inflicted by each successful attack made by a friendly man-crusher gargant that targets a unit that is part of a garrison or wholly on or within a terrain feature. So if you try to hide inside terrain, these guys get an extra damage against you. That's kind of cool. In addition, at the end of the combat phase, you can pick 1 terrain feature within 3 inches of a friendly man-crusher gargant and roll a dice. Add the number of models in that unit to the roll. On a 7+, the terrain feature is reduced to rubble. So if you have a unit of 3 man-crusher gargants, you add 3 to the roll. You need a 7+, so if you have a unit of 3, you'll need a 4+, and you just destroy whatever the terrain piece is and replace it with deadly scenery rubble. So you can just destroy like what everyone's talking about online, basically, guys, which is the big question, is that all these bonuses happen against garrisoned units, and Karajan Overlords, when they're on their ships, count as garrisoned. So you're getting an extra damage, and apparently you can just destroy the boat and replace it with scenery rubble because it's a garrisoned model. I don't know. It's very strange. They're gonna have to fix that. And then they have fierce loathings. When you pick a breaker tribe army, you can choose or roll for one of the following abilities. So you choose or roll. Obviously, you should always choose. You roll if you're like a super fluffy player. You just want a random one. You can either add 1 to hit rolls, the target hero or wizard, which is amazing. That's called Bossy Pants and Clever Cogs. Idiots with Flags, you can add 1 to hit rolls when you target a totem unit or any unit with command models. Shiny Uns, add 1 to hit if you're fighting things with a 1, 2, 3, or 4+ save that is not a hero or monster. So if you face lots of high armor things like Stormcast, that's pretty good. Add 1 to hit units against 20 units of 20 more models. Add 1 to hit against War Machine or monsters, or add 1 to hit against, this one's crazy, it's called Piggybackers. Add 1 to hit for attacks that target units with the ability, a unit that is with a mount that is not a monster. So basically like Knights, Dracoths, all that type of stuff. So honestly, I was looking through these command traits, and he might be the strongest one just in pure damage output, the Gatebreaker with the chain flail, because you take louder than words and you add 2 to the attack characteristics of this General's Fort Crusher flail, and it already has 10 attacks. So now it's 12 attacks at -3 flat 3, his main weapon, which is really gross. It hits on 4s, but before the game you pick one of these and you get +1 to hit against that type of enemy. So you pick hero and wizard, and a lot of the best monsters in the game are also heroes, so that covers most of that. And suddenly he's hitting on 3s with 12 attacks. And then you go to Artifacts of Power, and you give him the Great Rekka. And the Great Wrecker is every 6 you roll with the Fort Crusher Flail is a mortal wound in addition. So now it's 12 attacks, 6s or mortal wounds in addition to regular hits at -3 flat 3. Seems pretty good. Seems pretty strong. You don't see 12 attacks at flat 3 damage very often, so pretty mean. So as other command traits you could do, this one lets you pick 2 of these abilities over here to have +1 to hit against. You have one that lets you reroll the dice when you're trying to destroy terrain, and you have one that if you're within 9 inches of a terrain feature or a garrison, you count as having suffered 0 wounds in terms of your bracketing. So, not great. I'd probably either do the 40 wounds or the an extra 2 attacks. So there's other 2 artifacts you can take other than 6s being mortal wounds. You have roll a dice each time you suffer a wound or mortal wound. 6-up is negated. So 6-up shrug, 6-up feel no pain, nothing great. And then the King's Slaughter.
Pretty good on 35 wounds.
Yeah, you'd think, wouldn't you? Yeah, except I've tried the 6-up feel no pain with the Knight army that had like 80 wounds, and I could barely roll any 6s. It just depends. If you guys roll lots of 6s, then go for it. And then you have the King's Slaughter Cowl, which is the Executioner hood he's wearing. You can reroll wound rolls of 1 for attacks that target a hero. And then if that hero is also the general, it's reroll all wound rolls. So if your opponent's general is like I always bring up a Frostlord on Stonehorn, suddenly you can reroll all wounds against it with 12 attacks with the flail at -3 flat 3. Pretty mean.
I think it'd be better if it was hits, but because you hit on 4s and wound on 3s probably.
But you'll be hitting on 3s because remember you pick a type of enemy to get +1 to hit against.
And you'll pick the monsters and zeros and stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this is all how to do backgrounds and names and cool story mode, fluffy stuff. You can do background tables. So how the mercenaries work is if you're an order army, you can take the Kraken Eater. If you're a chaos army, you can take the War Stomper. And if you're a death army, you can take the Gatebreaker. And if you're destruction, you can take them all because you're destruction. Problem is you lose their allegiance abilities, so you just get what's on their war scroll. They're no longer leaders, they don't take artifacts, any of that if they're mercenaries. And it takes up your entire ally allotment. So you know how you're usually allowed 400 points of allies? These are like 490, but you're still allowed to bring it even though it's more than 400, but it takes up your whole ally amount. So the war scrolls, if you haven't already seen them online, they're pretty beefy. 35 wounds with a 4-up save. They do only have 7 bravery, so if your opponent has tricks and mortal wounds based on bravery, they can get hit pretty hard from that. They start at 11-inch movement for the Kraken Eater. Very strange. And it goes down to 7. The Almighty Stomp, 2 attacks, 3s and 3s, -2 rend, D3 damage. Now, if you remember, he had some sandals that he could wear that changes this to 3 attacks, -3 flat 3. So that's one artifact you could think about if you want better sandals. It's a sandals artifact. Alright, Death Grip, 1 attack, 3s and 3s, -3 D6 damage. Pretty good.
This is the fish guy?
Yep, this is the Kraken Eater, yep. And then the Shipwrecker War Club starts at 8 attacks, 3s and 3s, -2 flat 2. I really thought that'd be stronger. 2 damage for his giant club made out of cannons. So then you have a whole page of rules. There's so many. So Almighty Stomp, you can reroll 1s for Almighty Stomp unless it's a monster, because he has trouble stomping on a big monster. Crushing Charge. After you make a charge move, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 1 inch. On a 2+, the unit suffers D3 mortal wounds if it is a monster, or D6 if it's not a monster. See, they do D6 mortal wounds when they come crashing in, unless it's a monster, and then it's D3. That's pretty awesome. You can reroll hit rolls of 1 for Death Grip attacks that target a monster. So he squeezes monsters real good. Get Off Me Land. This is the one where you can kick an objective 2d6 inches.
So he's like Shrek.
Yeah.
Get off me land.
Get out of me, swamp.
Get out of me, swamp.
Longshanks is when this model makes a normal move, it can ignore models that have a wounds characteristic of 10 or less and terrain features that are less than 4 inches tall. So it can just walk over units, kind of like an Imperial Knight. That's kind of cool.
That's cool.
Sons of Behemat rule. If a spell or ability would slay the model, so Hand of Dust from Nagash. There's a few other things that slay models outright. The axe that a Khorne leader on foot can take. So if a spell or ability would slay this model without inflicting wounds or mortal wounds being inflicted by the spell or ability, this model suffers D6 wounds instead. So you can't just slay him outright. It's D6 at most.
That's pretty good.
Stuff him in Behemat. After this model piles in, you can pick up to D3 enemy models within 3 inches of this model and roll a dice for each of them. If the roll is at least double its wound characteristic, it's slain. So it's a little harder to do because you gotta roll double. But if you're facing a bunch of like 2 wound Stormcast, every 4 up just slays it, and you pick 3 of them. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then Terror, you subtract 1 from Braver characteristic of enemy units within 3 inches. And then Timber, when he's killed, you do that little mini game, dice roll off, and
see which way he falls.
Yeah,
that's fun.
But it's just D3. I really thought it'd be like flat 6. I mean, he's a big boy.
Yeah.
So then you got the War Stomper, which is the one I'm gonna do. Death Grip, it's the same thing. -3 D6 damage. Jump up and down, 4 attacks. So the Krakeneer didn't have jump up and down. So the War Stomper gets jump up and down because he's a Stomper. It's 4 attacks, 3s and 3s, -2 D3. And then you have the Titanic Boulder Club, which I know doesn't look very strong because his 3s and 3s -2, only 2 damage. But the special rule with his Titanic Boulder Club is that the attacks characteristic of the Boulder Club is equal to the number of enemy models within 3 inches of the attacking model. You add the Titanic Boulder Club value on the attacking model's damage table to the total. So, +4. So if you're fighting 10 models,
yeah, 10 models,
you're also adding +4, so it'd be 14 attacks. And then when you're attacking...
So you just want to swing that first, probably, because it'd probably...
Right. But when you're attacking a monster, add 4 to the total for each enemy monster within 3 inches. If the modified attack characteristics of the Boulder Club is less than 1, count it as being 1. So even if you're only fighting 1 guy, and you're at the bottom of this chart that adds extra attacks, you still get 1 attack. And then if the modified attack characteristics of the Boulder Club is more than 10, count it as being 10. So it's max 10. So at your highest strength against a monster, you're gonna have 8 attacks. Because you get +4 for it being a monster and then +4 for the table, the top bracket table. So 8 attacks at 3s and 3s -2, 2 damage. Nothing crazy. You get your normal, you get rerolls for jumping up and down on things, you get D6 mortal wounds for charging, you can reroll ones for Death Grip, all that normal stuff. But then you have this new rule for him called Hurled Body. Once per combat phase, you pick 1 enemy model within 3 inches and roll a dice. Add the Hurled Body modifier shown on this model's damage table to the roll. If the roll is at least double the enemy model's wound characteristic, it's slain, and you can roll another dice. On a 4+, you pick an enemy unit within 12 inches invisible to it. The unit suffers a number of mortal wounds equal to the wounds characteristic of the model slain. So you're fighting Gutbusters. It's a 4 wound ogre. You need to roll double, but you get +2 to the roll. So I guess against those you have to roll 6.
Yeah.
But say you do, you auto kill them and you throw them 12 inches and they take 4 mortal wounds because the ogre had 4 wounds. Pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. He's got his normal other abilities, which is Longshanks and Sons of Behemat and Terror and Timber, all that. So last one, we got Mega Gargant. He's the gate breaker. Stats are all the same. He does hurl a boulder, which is flat 4 damage at -3. 18-inch range, 1 attack, 3s and 2s, -3, flat 4. The boulder. So that's fun.
That's the gate guy.
He seems like he might be the best one. Other than the other one gets to kick objectives. The Kraken Eater gets to kick objectives. So that's pretty good too. Alright, so you got Almighty Stomp, same as the other one. You got Death Grip, same as the other. But then you have the Fort Crusher Flail, which I've already talked about, which starts at 10 attacks at 4s and 3s, -3, flat 3, and that never gets weaker. So that's amazing. It does go down in attacks as he takes wounds, but you could take the Warlord trait of +2 attacks, which would help a lot with that. And then he has all the same bonuses that the others get. The main difference is that he has this Smash Down ability, which he adds 1 damage to all your attacks if you target a unit that's part of a garrison or wholly within or on a terrain feature. So basically, if you take this guy, people aren't going to want to be hiding in cover because his flail will become damage 4 against anyone in cover or in a garrison. And then in addition, you roll a dice and you add this is the amount you need to roll to destroy terrain features. So on a 2+, and then it gets up to a 6+, and you replace it with deadly scenery rule and keyword scenery rubble. So someone could like pay for, I guess the armies that get free terrain pieces like the Gloomspite gets and their big moon rock, you can just destroy it and then lose all those abilities. It's pretty awesome. And then all the normal buffs. So the last unit is Man Crusher Gargants. It's almost the same as a normal Ale Guzzler Gargant. The difference is its movement never goes down. It just has flat 8-inch movement. And then the Massive Club used to be 3d6 attacks, and now it's just flat 10 attacks. That's way better. I'd rather have 10 than 3d6. I know the math is basically the same, but I never roll 10 on 3d6, so I'd rather just have 10 attacks. They have this thing called Stomping Charge, where if you roll this amount on a successful charge, you do D3 mortal wounds. It's pretty nice. You got Stuff 'em in a bag, which is pick one model. If you roll double, it's slain. So also Edbutt used to be D6 damage, and now it's flat 4.
That's better.
So yeah, so they took away all the random numbers and gave them flat numbers, which is always better. One last thing is points. 490 for the Gatebreaker, 490 for the Kraken Eater, 480 for the War Stomper, and 180 apiece for Man Crusher Gargants. But if you take 3 in a unit, they give you a point discount of only 480 for 3 of them. Whereas I think it would be 560, so it's a pretty hefty point discount if you take 3 Man Crusher. And the crazy thing is that if you take a unit of 3, it counts as all 3 Battleline units. So you just need one unit. Yep, that's awesome. The one thing people are complaining about, other than the insane point cost or insane dollar amount, is no what are they called? Battalions at all.
Oh, they didn't add any battalions at all?
Nope. I mean, it could have been easy enough to have, like, if you bring 1 of each, you get this bonus. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like something like that. It'll probably come out in a White Dwarf or some general handbook. They'll come up with something cool. But, I don't know, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. I think they could be really strong in a tournament setting with the whole kicking objectives and counting as 30 rolls. I don't think the damage output is very high. There's a lot of damage 2 stuff, which is just like, eh.
Yeah, we got, I mean, damage carries over, so.
Yeah. I think a lot of them is just going to be beef on objectives. Just like put bodies that are worth 10+ models on objectives and win.
I think just the one War Stomper and then a bunch of the little guys, and then everybody within 18 inches can just shoot, throw rocks and stuff.
And get all those bonuses. Reroll ones of saves. I do think there is something to the Kraken Eater being able to kick objectives, because it doesn't say you can't have 2. You know how normally you can't have them within 6 of a board edge, and you can't have them within 12 of each other, but it takes away that. So it's just like, walk around kicking all the objectives into one pile of objectives, and then back up and stand on it and win the game. Because at the end of the day, when you dumb it all down, Warhammer is an objective game, and that's it. You win with objectives. Maybe more so in 40k these days, but in AOS, that's still how you win too. So, yeah, I think it's a great book. I think it's fun. It's a lot of really funny stuff. If you just want to get this to read the fluff, it's hilarious. But $195 is the main drawback per model. $195.
It's a lot.
I mean, if I were to like, for those of you who don't have a bunch of expendable income and wait for like birthdays and Christmases for like gifts, it was already hard enough to ask like your parents or your spouse for an $80 model. $195, that's crazy. I mean, like, it's so much. An army of 3 of these, you're getting into like, you know, I mean, I guess 3 is almost an army, so it makes sense that you could buy your whole army for $600, but I could get 3 armies for $600 in 40k. So I don't know, it's tricky. Eventually I will get 1, guys, but in the meantime, I recommend the Mantic Giant. He is huge. He's at least as tall as them, I would guess. He's a little thin. They're a lot beefier. But put him on the correct base. He's only like $30 on eBay.
I think he looks good for just a...
I mean, he has the exact stance of the War Stomper.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy on the cover, it's literally just a big club He's angry. He's got a loincloth. He looks the same. So grab one of these guys in the meantime for 35 bucks on eBay. I think they're like 50 brand new, but it's a lot cheaper.
A lot more enticing.
Here's a fun thing I did. This is a McFarlane action figure. I think it's from the Spawn series. I repainted him, and he's just a big war mammoth gargant ready to grab people and swing his giant sword. He's a lot of fun. So yeah, there's ways around it, guys. There's a lot of giant models on the internet that you can find in the meantime while you save up your $200. But I
definitely probably still try to get one of the other ones because they do look awesome.
Oh, they're beautiful. I'm gonna get one of those. It
is quite a lot.
It's a save up type thing.
You know,
it's crazy. That being said, a lot of the new Necrons are up in that price range. $150 for the Silent King, $175 for the.
Yeah, it's $175 or $180 for the monolith.
Yeah. So you're looking at that much anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe their plastic just costs more. Just like they're charging for the amount of plastic. The Land Raiders are going to be $100 because they're just a big chunk of plastic. I don't know, guys. But thanks for joining us for this vlog, going over this very fun book that you may or may not see on the table a lot at tournaments or just at your friendly local gaming store. But this is Nick and Logan. We're going to start filming a battle report now, so tune in. That'll be coming soon. Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Later.